Okay, so what are we talking about here? We're going to be talking about Baroque era counterpoint techniques. Okay, and there are a few of them that really rise to the top in the Baroque era, notably Fugue, but a few others. The Invention and Canon. All three of those are become very popular in the Baroque era, and all three of them are worth studying on their own. Um, so, what are they? The invention, let's talk about that first because it's the most nebulous, really. There's not really a clear definition of what an invention is. Bach wrote a lot of them and he called it two-part inventions, he called them three-part inventions. And really, what they are is the kind of tangling together of two melodic elements using counterpoint. Some of them are relatively simple, some of them are very complex. Some of them follow a strict form that's very similar to the form that we find in a fugue, and some of them are more like a fantasy, more like a prelude, and they don't follow a strict form. So they're very nebulous. And I always think of inventions, and I don't know if this is the right way to think about them or not, but I always think of them as more of like a study. It's kind of um, a way to focus in on a particular idea and see what you can do with it. So when Bach was writing inventions, he had this melody and then he just kind of spun it around and to see what he could do with it two in two lines, the two-part inventions, and again in three lines, the three-part inventions. So that's my kind of interpretation on what the invention is, because it doesn't have a standard definition. Now the fugue is more does have a definitive definition, and what a fugue is it's a composition in which there are one or two themes, and those themes get repeated or imitated, so repeated with some variation, um, by successively entering voices and contrapuntally developed into a continuous interweaving of the voice parts. So think of a fugue like this. Um, Imagine you have two melodies, and those are pulled out in a string. Those melodies are a string, and now basically uh, knit a sweater with those strings. You know what I mean? So like you're going to do something really complicated with these strings. So the melody lines are going to enter at different points. They're going to change. They're going to morph, and they're going to get all tangled up together. It's a lot more complicated than that, and we'll go into the details of that for now. But as a very kind of broad understanding, um, that will at least get us started. That definition will get us started. And then the canon, you've encountered canons before probably. A canon is, in a way, a more scaled down fugue. Um, a canon is like a fugue, but with less imitation. So you have something like the easiest example is like the around. You may have sung around before, where I might sing row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, and then you start singing the same melody, but you start a couple beats later. So I say row, row, row your boat gently down the stream, merrily, 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 life is but a dream. And you start singing row, row, row your boat when I get to the word gently down the stream, merrily. So when I say merrily, 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 you start row, row, row your boat on the same pitch. Now that has all kinds of variations too. There's 100 different kinds of canons you can do. And they can also get really complicated and become a tangled web of melodic ideas. So all of these things have this kind of tangling aspect to them, taking melodies and just tangling them together using the rules of counterpoint and seeing what we can make out of them. So they're really fun, but they can be really hard to write. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of how these work, we need to start with one more basic idea, and that is the kinds of melodic ideas we need to come up with in order for this to work. There's a couple special techniques we use in the melody in order to create a melody that is very appropriate for this kind of, tangling together. So that gets us into a couple of techniques. So let's go to a new video and talk about those things first.